So I want to tell you a little story today about a 3PL that is right down the street, and it's a really sad situation that's happened, and it's just a great warning story for anyone that's out there that's actually looking at bringing on a 3PL now, to help you really understand the factors that can be involved when it comes to getting a super great deal. I'm sure you've heard the statement before that if a deal is too good to be true, it probably is. I think there's a lot of truth to that in the 3PL space, and so this story I think is really going to be eye-opening about how that actually is. There's a 3PL that's about a mile down the street from our facility, and they're a large facility. They're almost 1 million square feet, and they have venture capital funding, and they actually got about $60 million in cash. And so their goal was to sell the business within a year, and they were able to artificially deflate their prices to the point to where no one could touch them in the marketplace. They were the most competitive company out there when it stands to price. And so they loaded up their contracts. And in the business of buying and selling businesses, ARR is a really big number. That's the annual reoccurring revenue. And when you are looking at the valuation of a business, that valuation is based off of that ARR, and then there's a multiplier. It may be 8 times the ARRs, or 10 times the ARRs, or 7 times the ARRs. So they were looking to bump that ARR number up as high as possible so that they would get the highest valuation possible. And they were working through several deals, and several of them actually fell apart. And the most recent one fell apart about a week ago. And the reason that it's so sad that this deal fell apart is because the investors decided after that they weren't going to continue to subsidize these rates. And the company had been losing money every month trying to service these accounts that were priced below cost. And so when the investors decided they weren't going to put any more money in, the company had no choice except for to close their doors. And so, we've been getting phone calls all week about the customers that are in that building that are looking for an opportunity to get out of that building. And so if you put yourself in that customer's shoes right now, this brand that's actually relying on this 3PL to handle their fulfillment, number one, they paid a tremendous amount of money to get their goods delivered to that facility. So, an average client, if it's a $250,000 client, you're probably looking at 30 truckloads worth of goods that are coming into that facility on the intake process. They're going to have to spend that same amount of money for those 30 truckloads to go to another facility now at this point. So there's one expense. The second expense is they've had bad service for quite a while because the company was trying to figure out how to become more profitable. And so what do if you're underwater on a contract and you are trying to become more profitable? You figure out where you can cut costs. And so in this case, the cost of cutting happened to be the service. And a lot of times where you'll see this is if a 3PL is advertising 98, 99% on time in full, but you're actually getting a service rate of around 70%, probably there's something wrong there in terms of the pricing. If you are actually priced properly, they should be very interested in making sure that they're hitting that pricing target for you. So normally that's a good indicator that there's a cost issue versus servicing your account if you're not seeing that consistency in terms of on time in full. So in this case, these clients were not seeing that consistency. We actually were in this facility about 6 months ago, and we walked through, and it was pallet after pallet after pallet after pallet after pallet. And I'm talking, it's like I said, around 1 million square foot facility. I bet you 300 to 400,000 square feet were pallets that just had research with a question mark on them. So inventory management processes obviously were not taking place in that facility. And that goes again back to the cost piece. When you're not priced properly or priced appropriately, one of the easy places to cut costs is on that intake process, because if you're a diligent facility, you're going to spend a lot of time making sure that your inventory accuracy coming in the door, that's one of the most important places for your inventory to be accurate, is when it walks into that door, because if it's not accurate, then it's never going to be accurate afterward. So tremendous amounts of lost product that these clients were dealing with. Now that the doors are closed, they can't get in there to get their product out. So their operations in North America are completely put on hold. They have inventory they can't sell, but that they are having to carry, the carrying cost on. And ultimately, it's just a terrible situation for these brands. And, That's why a really great 3PL can be a hero to your business and make you look like a hero, because if you think about it, you're white labeling our services generally. So it can't be, the customer's not going to blame someone else for a bad customer service experience. If they ordered something and it's 3 months later and it still hasn't arrived, that's really on you. So, a great 3PL can make you look like a hero. A terrible 3PL can put you out of business. And so, I just think that's very important for you to think about when it comes to making choices on your vendors. And, and that's a very extreme case. There's other cases too that I think are just important to think about. Right now, there's a tremendous amount of people who are entering this space, trying to get into the order fulfillment space. And it's because they see these headlines that happen every day that are like, Walmart's 35% oversold on inventory. They have no space left. Warehouses across the U.S. are at 97% capacity. It's obvious that there's a lot of demand in our space right now for warehousing and fulfillment services. And so everyone's trying to get in on the game. The hardest thing about this business is understanding your pricing. In our business, it's been 9 years. We still learn something new every day about pricing. And really what it comes down to is understanding what your loaded costs are. You have an employee who's walking around picking orders. You need to know what their hourly rate is, but you also need to know what the taxes and the Social Security and the cost of their health benefits and the cost of their training and the cost of their vacation and the cost of the, electricity and the software that they're using on their handheld to go around and do the picking of those orders, and the cost of the fuel and the cost of the lease for the forklift. And there's just so many different costs that you have to factor into your pricing. And a lot of times 3PLs that are brand new aren't very good at that. If you are going out and you're consulting and you're looking for a new 3PL and you're getting multiple bids, you really want to be careful about the ones that are in that bottom tier. You really want to look for someone who's in the middle, and possibly maybe even someone who's on the high side. I would really try to figure out what their value proposition is if they're on the high side, but you definitely want someone who's at least in the middle. The people who are at the bottom probably don't understand pricing well enough to give you a true price. They are not able to service your account because they can't afford to, and that's what it ultimately comes down to. And so, I talk to a lot of companies, and I ask them their goals. What is it that you want to accomplish with using a 3PL? And when I hear, I just want to save money, the first thing I do is try to educate people that that's very likely not going to be what you're going to see from this relationship. Because, if you're doing it efficiently in your operation and you're not having to pay yourself profit, we as a business, we can't survive if we aren't charging enough to where we can actually make a profit and sustain our growth over time. So, right there, you're going to have a built-in cost working with a 3PL that you aren't experiencing on your own. However, where you will see a lot of opportunity that may really feel like savings is the fact that you're able to scale your cost over time, and you're able to have those costs be variable instead of like a fixed cost for a warehouse. And so what I mean by that is you may not have to actually go out and take a lease and get a warehouse management software and hire a bunch of people. You are paying an order price, and every time that a customer orders something, you factor that cost into your cost of doing business or your cost of goods sold, and you call it a day, and you save yourself a lot of trouble there. And so the cost per unit may be slightly higher working with an outsourced option, but you're not having to carry all of that overhead, and you're not having to deal with all of the hassle of understanding how to manage a warehouse. And so, the bottom line though, the one thing I want you to really understand when it comes to working with a 3PL is that if it's a good one, they are going to work with you, and they are going to explain their pricing to you. They're going to help you understand how they got to the number that they did, and it's going to feel like a trusting relationship. I tell people all the time in our business, we have 3 main things that we are always trying to accomplish and that we're trying to drive into our people: trust, relief, and discretionary effort. We want our clients and our employees and our peers and everyone around us to feel like they can trust us, and we want people around us that we can trust. So having a trusting relationship. The second thing is relief. A 3PL should provide you relief. You should feel relief from working with a 3PL. Not only are they handling all of your order fulfillment and taking that off your plate, but you should feel so relieved and trustful of that company that you don't have to worry about that, and that it's just kind of operating in the background. So are they providing relief? And same for us. We look for customers who are going to be good customers, and we want those customers to provide us relief. And that relief is not, letting us out of a mistake or whatever, but it's having a good attitude and having a great, an excited relationship where we feel like it's a true partnership and we can both help each other grow. And then the third thing is discretionary effort. If you think about any good relationship, discretionary effort is a big part of it. And in business, the employees that are going to really make a difference in that business and the companies that really make differences in other people's business are the ones that put out a lot of discretionary effort. So I think, those are three things. If I were in someone's shoes looking for a 3PL, I would be looking for those three things. And I would also be looking to really make sure that the company that I was working with had a full handle on what their costs were. And now, with that being said, if you were to shop different 3PLs and you find one that has a much different cost, but they can explain their cost than another, maybe there are some different factors that are involved. Maybe their overhead is different. Maybe they own the building and they don't have to pay a lease payment. Maybe they have certain types of automation that are particularly helpful for your product. That's why before I had mentioned that sometimes 3PLs are, some are better geared towards certain brands and certain types of products and certain company sizes than others. So those are all factors you can think about when it comes to making a decision on your 3PL. And hopefully you'll make a good one and they make you out to be a hero. If you enjoyed this video today, I hope you'll drop a comment below and like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.